Oh, and we've learned we have to wait a minute.
No, a second or two.
A
Okay.
second or two. Has it been a second or two?
Yeah, I think it has.
Hey, look at that. We've got Willy Paul with us today, Cole.
Willie Paul or Paul Willie? Isn't it confusing having a
Believe me, you're
name with,
not the first one to ask that. Yeah,
yeah,
especially
with
when I
two
have a
first
middle name
names?
and three first names.
Now,
You're not
what's
the
your
first
middle
one.
name, Willie? Come on, it's not like Willie Peter Paul, is it?
No, it's Willie Alfred Paul.
Willie
Oh,
Alfred Paul.
Yeah.
I think Alfred, I think I'd go by Alfred. That's kind of a unique name. How many Alfreds do we know? Alfred's, how do you say it? Steiglitz?
Steiglitz.
Yeah, there you
Alfred
go.
That's a good
Hitchcock?
comparison.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Well, people usually ask me if Willie's the real first name, and I have to say, no, it's not. But the only place it's different is on my birth certificate. My real name is Wilhelm.
Ah,
Oh, now
Wilhelm.
I've got a friend Willem from
Yeah,
Denmark.
yeah, exactly. I've seen
Okay.
the your episode and the photos of his work, the blue work.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, thanks for being on the show tonight, Willie.
Yeah. Thanks, you
We'll
guys. Have
catch
a
you
good
later.
night.
So, hey, in our last episode, we had kind of a wrap up, a follow up, a download, if you will, about our experience with the first vision retreat that we did out at Cole's house, and we mentioned that we were going to have a special guest on, and Willie is our special guest. So, Willie, in our last episode, Cole and I shared some of our observations, some of what our aspirations were for this retreat, and retreat was a very specific, different word. Um, Rather than a tour or a workshop, we thought we wanted to differentiate it. So we were without any setup here either. I mean, all we did, folks, is we said, Willie, would you be willing to come and talk? Right. So we don't know whether he's going to say something good or bad, Cole. Although we could
But
just delete this
we do
episode
have a
too.
delete
Yeah,
button.
we
Yeah.
do have a
So
delete button. But Willie, so from your experience, first of all, have you taken regular workshops?
I've taken photography workshops in the past,
Okay.
and I'm so glad you started off with describing tours and retreats and workshops because this was by all means a retreat, far different than anything I've ever attended before.
Good.
It was a very personal experience. It was a small group, and another thing you just said a moment ago was, and you heard many of us at the retreat say this at the end near the wrap up, is that part of the success of this was having a small group, having you curate and create an environment that made it very, very comfortable for everybody to share deep and personal experiences, as we all heard. It caused the group to really gel. And I don't think there's any of us that knew one another before we arrived at the retreat. You knew a couple
no, I
people.
think Margaret and
Oh,
uh,
Barry.
Okay.
Margaret and Earl.
Margaret and Earl knew each other, of
Yeah.
course, because they're married.
Well,
Oh,
But nonetheless, the key thing that you said a moment ago was this was held at Cole's house, and that made for such a personal experience, one that would have been difficult to replicate in an offsite location in something of a less personal environment. So
right.
that's the first thing, and then secondly, the curation that both of you did leading up to the retreat, the homework that you had us prepare for, and the mindset that it created in each of us before arriving at the retreat. I think all of that was very, very well done, and it just created an environment where we could get beyond the typical things that you would normally focus on in a photography workshop and
Right.
get beyond all the things that of course, we all need to know how to use the tools of our craft. We all need to know how to use a camera. We all need to understand exposure and composition and all the things you typically get when you go to a workshop. Those are the technical things that make for a successful image. But it's rare that you have a group of people and a retreat that's organized in such a way that you're really focusing on why am I taking photographs?
Mm.
What is my vision? And what do I need to do to succeed in expressing that vision? And that's the basis of this retreat. And it was a very, very successful retreat. Again, perhaps you'll have others on too, but each and every one of us at the retreat in the wrap up said essentially the same thing: how successful it was, how much it meant to us, how important it was for our photography journey. And it was much more than I expected. Before I came on today, one of the things, John, that you have each of the attendees do is prepare a statement of why you're interested in attending the Vision Retreat.
Right.
So before I came on to join you and Cole today for this episode, I went back to what I had sent you in my original vision statement. And clearly there were some things that I had an interest in achieving. I have a very eclectic portfolio. I feel I have felt for a long time that my photographs are merely photographs of things and places. And I never had the ability to really articulate in words the deeper meaning behind what I'm photographing and why I'm doing it.
Mm.
And this retreat was the one that really caused me to just slow down and almost stop
Wow.
and reassess what it is that I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how do I now go forward with my photographic journey in the future.
Wow.
That's what it meant for me.
Pretty powerful.
Any big epiphanies that you had from that you summed up?
Yeah, so many. The first thing is for the people watching that don't know the homework. So much of it is based in the book, the creative act, a way of being by the author Rick Rubin. And so many of the things that are in that book that we went through each day were epiphanies. For me, the biggest one is that our photographs are really our art is really a daily journal entry. It's a journal entry of what we see and how we see the world. There was another thing that we talked about at the retreat, and that's in Rick Rubin's book, is you can have a point when you're making it, when you're having a discussion with somebody. But the difference between having a point and having a point of view is an entirely different thing. And that point of view, the worldview, and the fact that it's all of our life experiences that come together to create that point of view is what's behind the vision that we may have with the photographs that we take. And that is just mind-blowing when you think about it that way and you take the time to understand why you're photographing. And you can get 10 photographers to photograph a scene, and we all know that you come up with essentially 10 different photographs for one reason or another. But every other time I've had this conversation, it's about, oh, I used a different f-stop, or my exposure was different, or I had this filter on the camera, or whatever it was. And people are looking at the tool they use that caused a different photograph. But how often do you really think in terms of what you're seeing through the viewfinder as you're seeing a scene? What goes through your mind and all your life experiences that you've had leading up to that point that really cause you to push the shutter at that moment and express a vision through the tool that you're using, which is our camera. And the other thing, Cole, that you emphasized and that we talked about many times is the notion of a photography continuum.
Mm.
And I had never understood that or heard that before. And to me, that's very, very valuable in understanding where I'm at with my photographic journey. And I tend to be on one side of that continuum, which is very documentary in the way that we photograph, photographing what we see, and then manipulating certain things to emphasize one thing or another. But when you understand that along that continuum, you can take that and become very artistic with your vision and become expressive in what you're doing with your tool, your camera. It again just opens up a whole different world of opportunities for what you create. And the last thing I'll say, and then I'll pause, is that I believe that words matter in how we live our lives and what we do each day. And for me to say I'm a photographer is one thing. It's another to say I'm an artist and I use a camera as my tool.
Yeah.
And to me, those are, again, just mind-blowing concepts when you change your thinking, when you change your words, and it opens up a whole new set of opportunities.
Mm.
So if you could imagine work that you do in a year from now, how might it be different than the work that you've done in the past?
If I if I achieve the things that I'm looking to achieve, I'll move far further over on the right of that continuum, and they will be much more expressive photographs rather than documentary style pictures
Huh.
that I've taken in the past.
Okay, cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, very, very well articulated, Willie. Thank you so much. You were a force, during the retreat in a really, really positive way. Very everybody was, though. Everybody was really invested in this type of thinking, this type of deep reflection, I think is a good word too.
Yeah.
Um, but I love how you've articulated some of the learnings and takeaways that you've had from this.
Yeah.
We had so many
Go ahead, Cole.
we had so many different points of view there. People, you think about Earl and his point of view, or Barry,
Yeah.
or Willie, and or oh my gosh, Tamar. I mean, it was amazing the variety of viewpoints. Yet we were all able to come together in a common idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that none of us had met one another before we arrived. And to have a group of people like that very quickly gel and reveal some of the most
Oh,
personal stories,
yeah.
from Roger to Barry to Roxanne and Sarah. I mean, each of us had very personal stories that we shared. It was like a therapy session,
Yeah.
You may or may not understand what that feels like, but it really was that in everybody's outlook, in everybody's experiences, and what everybody took away from the retreat. Margaret and Tamar, each of them had experiences that were,
Yes.
I think many of us, our eyes were open, our jaws were open, not believing what we're hearing them say
Right.
about some of the things that they've been through in their experiences.
Yeah.
And that just further opened up the ability to be vulnerable and talk about things that were important, and that really made a difference in how we photograph.
Yeah.
Well, that was so critical that we knew that the key would be if people would open up.
Yeah.
Because we all know that in a group, there's going to be ones who are very quiet and rarely speak, and others who might speak a lot. And so we tried to make it clear everyone had to participate. They had to share their story,
Yeah.
not just for them, but to help others understand they weren't alone, that their experiences were not unique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, and as we look forward to the next retreat, we recognize it's not the format of the retreat that will make it successful. It will be the individuals who attend, their willingness to open up, and hopefully gel like this group did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
this group has kind of had a high bar put out there for anybody forward, really. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it was remarkably cohesive group. Remarkably.
Yes. Yes, it absolutely was. And then also the biggest epiphany, you asked me this earlier, and I had to look real quickly at what I had written down on that last day when we were together, because Cole, you asked us several questions, and we had to think about that, and they were good takeaways for me. For me, the first one is that my photography is a journal entry.
Yeah.
That by far is probably the overarching epiphany that I'll take away. The second one is, John, what you've always reinforced is being taken rather than taking or making or creating photographs, but being taken. If you allow yourself for that to happen, magic can happen.
Mhm.
And then the third one is to recognize that where I am on the photography continuum, as we talked about a moment ago, to me that's also a very big one. And I think all three of those, if I can continue to apply those and not fall back into previous habits and routines, I think those three things can make a big difference in my photography.
Well, that'll be the challenge for everyone. Once we go home and we're back into the daily grind, and photography takes a smaller portion of our time, to be able to remember how we felt, remember what our commitment to ourselves were, and
Yeah.
hopefully make the change.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
And
thanks for having me.
one thing we didn't talk about, and I'm sorry, I know we have time constraints, but
Yeah.
the other challenge, and this is a more practical one, but it applies. In the retreat, there was an undisclosed location that we went to, so we had no idea prior to arriving what we were going to photograph, where it was going to be, or anything like that. And I know you want to keep it that way for future retreats. So we went there the first day, and we had some challenges. And then we went back the second day. And then you realize when you go back a third, a fourth, and a fifth day, the challenges become greater every day. And it forces you to look deeper and deeper and deeper for photographic opportunities.
Yeah.
You're no longer picking, the low-hanging fruit. Now you're having to really look deeply into the opportunities. And if you're relying on your vision, how does that pair up?
Yeah.
And so it's not a matter of being a pinball, bouncing around, running and racing from one scene to the next, taking pictures. It's a matter of slowing down and stopping and letting it just absorb you,
Yeah.
finding the things you want to photograph, and then moving through that environment and finding more of those things.
And I think most people found the area a bit challenging at first, but I think everyone by the end of the retreat appreciated being at the same place for 5-6 days.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was all, certainly part of our plan. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's easy to go to Yosemite or Smokies or Yellowstone, right? And the low-hanging fruit is abundant, and that was part of our idea, was to get us to learn to be taken, because it's easy to be taken by Half Dome. Everybody is,
Yeah. Yeah, but it really causes you to look deeper and deeper, and causes you to slow down and really think about what's important and how you're going to photograph any particular scene. Yeah.
Well, Willie, we're grateful for you joining us. Cole, did you have anything else you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I was glad you were at the retreat. You had a unique perspective. You've got great skills, and I look forward to seeing your work in a year.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I look forward to being at other retreats in the future with both of you, because it was very meaningful, and I look forward to doing it again.
Well, we would love to have you back, but I agree with Cole. I look forward to seeing your progress too. I think this group is going to remain rather close and tight knit, so I suspect we've got a new group of friends,
Yeah,
especially as the first group growing through here. So thank you, Willie, for
exactly.
being willing to come and be with us on the show and share your experience, and we appreciate it very much.
Exactly. Thanks for having me. I
All right.
appreciate it. Thank the both of you too for curating it so well.
You're
Thanks.
welcome. Our pleasure. Take good care. Bye,
Great.
folks.
Thanks.